now let's have another contestant. Will you come in and sign in, please? Right there, please. Natalie? Carbone? Mangini. Is that right? Miss or Mrs. Mangini?
Mrs.
Mrs. Mangini.
Yes.
Where are you from, ma'am?
Crabtree, Pennsylvania.
Crabtree, Pennsylvania.
Yes.
Well, isn't that grand? Crabtree, Pennsylvania. That's wonderful. Mrs. Mangini, the panel. Mrs. Mangini, will you join me here, please? Are you familiar with the way we keep score?
Oh, yes.
That's fine. Then we'll let everybody at home and the folks here in the audience know exactly what your line is. All right, panel. Once again, Mrs. Mangini is salaried, and let's begin the general questioning with Rudy Valley.
You delve in services.
Yes.
Would they benefit mankind as a general thing?
Yes.
Do you wear a uniform?
Part of the time.
Part of the time.
Part of the time.
Is this a governmental or a federal
Uniform? You mean
No.
a governmental or federal uniform?
Yeah,
No.
no occupation.
No. One down, 9 to go, Miss Francis.
Do people come to you for your services?
No.
No, I wouldn't
No.
think so. 2 down and 8 to go, Mr. Sir.
Mrs. Mangini, has your work got anything to do with either farming, dairying, agriculture of any kind?
No.
No?
3 down and 7 to go, Miss Kilgallen.
Mrs. Mangini, do people watch you when you're doing what you do? No.
4 down and 6 to go, Mr. Valley.
Is your job patriotic?
Yes.
Does it have anything to do with the American flag?
No.
5 down and 5 to go, Miss Francis.
Ms. Mangini, do you do a job that is usually done by men?
Yes.
Are you out of doors some of the time in your work?
No.
6 down and 4 to go, Mr. Sir.
Mrs. Mangini, do you ever work near or around any kind of missiles or instruments of destruction?
Yes. Yes.
To some degree.
Would your work sometimes be done in a laboratory?
Yes.
Have you got anything whatever to do with one of the missiles or things that are going to be aimed at outer space?
No.
Or the sort?
No.
No.
That's 7 down and 3 to go, Miss Kilgallen.
Would you be classified as a scientist by the government?
Yes.
Are you an atomic scientist?
Yes. Thank you, Bennett.
That's very good, panel, because one happy bit of news, though, that I want to take care of first. This is Mrs. Mangini's birthday, so happy birthday.
Oh, happy birthday.
But actually, Mrs. Mangini is an atomic scientist with Westinghouse.
Westinghouse.
And has had some association with the development patterns that have produced the atomic submarines. I mean,
And the Nautilus.
The Nautilus. Would you be good enough to tell us? I mean, I know that some of these areas are sensitive and there's security involved, but what do you, as an atomic scientist, have to do, for instance, with the development of the Nautilus? And
Oh, developed chemical procedures that were used aboard the Nautilus. And I helped do some of the work connected with the shipping port power reactor also.
The shipping port? Where did you go to school?
Seton Hill.
Seton Hill?
A girls' school.
A girls' school. Well, I hope you went to a girls' school. Now, what, did you take a degree immediately in science?
Bachelor of Arts, actually.
In science?
Yes.
And did you do graduate work after that, or did you?
Yes, at Carnegie Tech.
Carnegie Tech, and then went up to Westinghouse.
Yes.
Any other girls working in that kind of job?
Recently we hired another one. There's just the two of us now.
They're getting in
must be
everywhere.
Yes, I think Bennett's got it right, you know. They're getting in everywhere. They're great thing, bouncers and atomic scientists. It really knocks one over a bit, doesn't it? Now, well, I must say, thank you very much for being our guest. Again, a very happy birthday, and thanks a lot for coming along and having some fun with us. Good to have you.
Natalie Carbone Mangini, and Daniel is my grandson, and this is my daughter Natalie over here, who's here to make sure I say the right things. And I'm to tell you about my life. And I really had at least 3 lives, because I was a nuclear scientist first, then a mother, and the whole time I was an entrepreneur. I owned a restaurant and worked at a restaurant and helped with an oil company, and so I've had a interesting life.
All right, Grandma, I'm just going to ask you some questions. Can you give me some background about yourself, about your age and where you're born?
Well, I was born on August 24th, 1928 in Long Branch, New Jersey. So I'm a Jersey girl, and you have to watch out for me because everybody knows about Jersey girls. So, well, let's see. I went to school. Actually, I went to, because we kept moving, I went to 6 different schools.
Well, why did you come back to Crabtree?
And, I came back to Crabtree because my grandmother got very sick, and she was, they thought she was going to, they knew she was going to die because she had, huh?
Your mother, not your grandmother.
No, my grandmother, yeah. Yeah, my grandmother was sick. She had her gallbladder burst and she had peritonitis. And so my dad said to my mother to come out and help her because she needed help. And so then we ended up, she passed away, and then we ended up out in Crabtree then, living in Crabtree. So, as I said, I went to 2 grade schools, two middle schools, and then 2 high schools. So I've had a lot of experience with different things.
What in particular interests you in nuclear science?
Oh, you're jumping way ahead. Well, I was always interested in science because my mother had given me for Christmas a chemistry set, and I used to. And in those days, the chemistry sets were different than the ones that they sell now. They had all kind of dangerous chemicals in it, and one of the best things that you could do was make fireworks. And I used to do things like that, make fireworks, and I always thought, well, I just like that. And so when I went to school, and I went to Seton Hill College, and I decided to major in chemistry. And my dad and mother were very good to me because in those days, they didn't think the girls should go to school, especially to college. They thought you should be either a nurse or a teacher. That's all. Most girls went in for stuff like that. But I had the chance to go in and become a chemist, which helped me out. And then after I graduated from Seton Hill, I worked for Westinghouse at the Micarta Works, where we did, it was analytical chemistry and control chemistry on resistors. And while I was working there, someone told me that they were hiring up at Bettis. And
what is Bettis?
Bettis is Westinghouse's atomic power division, and they said they had some good jobs open up there. So I sent my resume in, and after I did, they called me in for a job. An interview. And they had 3 jobs open. And I was interviewed by 3 different groups of people, and I found out later that They thought I was a man because my name is Natalie, and they read the thing and read Natalie. And when they walked in and saw me sitting there, they said, "Oh my goodness, it's a woman. What are we going to do?" Because they said we would have never even called you in if we knew you were a woman. But since I was already there, they interviewed me, and they offered me the one job in analytical chemistry. And I told them, no, I didn't want that job, because there was a job in analytical chemistry, spectroscopy, and radiochemistry. And after I talked to the people, I decided I liked the people in radiochemistry, and it sounded like they were doing interesting work. So I said, no, I have my job. I'm not going to take the analytical chemistry one. The only one I would take is the one in radiochemistry. And I went home. 2 days later, they called me up and they said, you have the job in radiochemistry. And that's how that started my work in nuclear chemistry. Because I actually didn't know anything about nuclear chemistry when I went into the job. And I took classes in nuclear chemistry at Carnegie Tech and learned how to do it. And became a nuclear chemist.
The first nuclear chemist.
And I actually was the first woman to become a nuclear chemist at the Bettis plant. They didn't have any women who were scientists or nuclear scientists. So.
Now, what in particular did you work on at the Bettis plant?
At the Bettis plant, we had a really nice job. Our aim was to, if anyone had a problem, like in physics or down at the reactor, or if they had a problem in it, and it could be solved with radiochemical techniques, then they would call us up. So we would go over to physics and talk to them and decide what we would do and maybe help them solve their problem. And or if something happened down at the reactor, and they needed some help, and we could use our techniques to solve it, we would do things like that. And so we got to go all over the plant and to work various things. I mean, you didn't do one thing every day. You never knew what was coming up. So that was a good job. Mm-hmm.
How about what was the most famous thing you did at Westinghouse?
Well, the most famous
project you worked on?
I worked on how to detect impurities in the reactor water. The coolant reactor water that would be in the submarines, and that was one of them. And I worked on some other ones on reactive. I think I did four papers. I helped publish 4 papers.
Yes, but what?
Can you describe your work on the USS Nautilus?
Well, they had to know if there was a leak in the reactor or something like that. So we had to develop a procedure that you could find a leak in the water in the reactor that would go into the water, and
yes, but describe what the Nautilus was. What was the Nautilus's submarine?
Nautilus was the first nuclear submarine that could stay underwater and did not have to come up for air every so often. And in fact, the nuclear submarine made the underwater circumnavigation of the pole, and under ice circumnavigation of the pole. Polar ice cap, and came into New York to a ticker tape parade, and a bunch of
you witnessed,
which I got to go to because I had worked on this. But the one thing that happened was that when it came time to decide who would go on board and do the procedure if it was needed, they had my name down, and one of the Navy men said, is that in Carbone a woman? And my boss was at the meeting, and he says, yes, she is. He says, she can't go on the submarine. There'll be no women on the submarine. So I didn't get to go to do the testing of the Nautilus, which was a disappointment because I knew it would make it.
Did you face any other sexism or prejudice while working at the plant?
No, not really. The men never did anything like that. In fact, I think I was there for them to tell me their problems, because they would come into my lab and they would tell me the things that were going on at home and stuff like that. And I really didn't care about it, but they did. And it was a nice let up for them. They could let off steam, and they let it off to me.
Did you continue to work on any projects after the Nautilus?
Oh, yeah, we worked on Shipping Port and the other submarines, and
Shipping port.
Shipping Port was the first
Peacetime.
peacetime nuclear reactor, and it powered Pittsburgh, and we set that up.
And then
And we just did anything to make the submarines better. And each submarine that was built was a better submarine.
What awards did you win as a result of your study of nuclear chemistry?
I won the Mademoiselle Award of Merit in Atomic Science, 1958, an award for Distinguished Italian-American Women. The American Chemical Society affiliates of Seton Hill College gave me an award. And I got a Distinguished Alumni Award for Seton Hill College. And I was asked to do a news release from Seton Hill College in Time magazine, and it was about, I had my picture in Time magazine and an article about my work at Seton Hill, and those were some of them, but I've had other ones since then too.
Which one is your favorite, and which one are you most proud of?
I never thought about it. No one ever asked me that before. I guess I was proud of being in Time magazine. Because that was an honor, and it still is. I never made the cover, but I made the inside. And Seton Hill was very happy because they got a lot of free publicity because of what I had done. So.
Did you receive any opposition at home to becoming a scientist since you were going into a male-dominated field?
No, my mother and dad were very encouraging, and they knew I liked to go to school and to study, and they were happy that I was doing it. Mm-hmm.
How many years did you work at Westinghouse, and why did you quit?
I worked 10 years for Westinghouse, and what happened was I got married and in 1957, but then I became pregnant in 1960, and because of the dangers to a child that would be born while I was working with radioactivity, which I worried about, I I told my boss I was quitting. And he said, oh, you can't quit. He says, no one can do your job. And I says, I've been telling you to get somebody to take over for me. And he said, he says, you'll have to stay, you're allowed to stay 6 months. But he said, then you can quit, because at that time, women were not allowed to be pregnant working anywhere in Westinghouse. They had to quit after 6 months. And it was a legal matter. So I worked there for 6 months, and they were the worst months that I had, because I didn't do anything but sit at my desk and write procedures and write how to do things and explain what I did. And I had a headache every day. And the doctor told me, he says, the day you quit Westinghouse, this is the day your headaches are going to quit. And that's what happened. and I was really worried about my first child, because I don't know if people know, but women are born with all their eggs in them when they're born, when they're babies. So I knew that I had been working with this radioactive, strong radioactive material, and that they could have been, my eggs could have been irradiated, and I was worried about if it would be trouble with the child, with the baby that I would have. I had my first child, Vanessa, and she was...
But before you refused to set up a nursery.
Oh, yes. When she was born, I refused to set up a nursery, and I didn't buy any clothes for her because my mother said, well, I can go in and get you some clothes. Turned out that the day she was born, it was a blizzard in this area, and my mother could not go shopping. And so when we brought the baby home, she had to be dressed in baby doll clothes. My one cousin had a baby doll, and she had the clothes for her, so she gave us those clothes, and we brought her home in those because it was funny.
But you refused to set up the nursery because you were worried about...
Yeah, how everything would be. Right. She turned out very, very well.
She's the smartest one.
And she has some real smart children.
All right, now, even though your work was 60 years ago, is there any information you still can't disclose with the public?
Yes, there's things that are still secret, and I'm not allowed to talk about some of the stuff. And I have given talks, because this has been like 50-some years ago, and last time I gave a talk, I checked with Westinghouse, and they said to just still keep quiet about some of the stuff. Let me tell you one thing, though. A funny thing happened when I was working for Westinghouse. I was on What's My Line, which is a game show. They had a panel of experts who asked you questions to find out what your job was, and they tried to guess it. And so I was on that program on the day that the Nautilus came into the New York Harbor after the polar ice cap. And when I was on the thing, when I was on What's My Line, I signed my name in Natalie Carbone Mangini, and there were some people in Miami who were watching the show, and she was swimming in the swimming pool.
Customers of the restaurant.
They were customers of the restaurant, and I waited on them. I knew them. And she yelled up at her husband. She says, oh, I know her job. She's a waitress at Carbone's. And she says, when I found out what your job really was, she says, I almost drowned. So, but I did have the opportunity. Westinghouse set me up there, and I met head of all the Westinghouse, and I was there for the ticker tape parade, and I was on David Garraway and
Today Show.
what?
The Today Show.
And the Today Show, and this What's My Line. So it was a really wonderful experience, and Westinghouse treated me good. I've had a wonderful life, being a nuclear chemist, and a lot of wonderful experiences in nuclear chemistry. I was sent one time to New Hampshire for a conference in which the top scientists in the United States and in Europe were there, and there was only 3 women there, and I was one of them, and there was like 200 men, and that was a wonderful experience. And I've been to Argonne National Lab, and I've been to Chalk River, the Canadian nuclear center, and all these things with Westinghouse, plus other ones that I can't even mention all of them. And then I've also been working at the restaurant and now I am the restaurant. But my biggest accomplishment has been my children. And they're all different, and they reflect a little of each of our personalities. I mean, some I can see my husband in some, and myself in some of them. And that's what I wanted to say, that being a mother has been the most rewarding thing for me. The rest was just gravy on the chicken.